Assalamu alaikum. Dear learners, in this video I am going to discuss pressure sensors only. You must have seen the previous video where I discussed various kind of temperature sensors and discussed that how certain sensing technologies can be used to measure temperature. In this video I am going to focus on the sensing technologies and their use to measure pressure. But before moving on to the discussion of different pressure sensing devices, we should establish that what pressure is. Simply stated, pressure is the force acting on a unit area. Both components of the pressure, that is the force and area, are very important. Let me try to explain this point through an example. Let's suppose that there is a certain wooden block and you are standing on it. No matter how hard you jump on that wooden block, you won't be able to penetrate into that block, even though you are applying a force of your complete weight and by jumping on the block, even a force greater than your weight. However, if you use a nail and strike it even gently with a hammer, that nail will penetrate into the block. What happened over here? You were applying much greater force but was not able to penetrate even slightly into the block. Even though you were applying greater force, the pressure you were creating was not enough to penetrate the block. So it is not about the force but pressure that is required to tear into the block. Now, how come the pressure you created was not enough? The force which you were applying was acting on a large area, that is the area of your feet. Therefore, force divided by the area of your feet will give you the pressure. In case of the nail and hammer, the force was quite small as compared to your weight, but the area on which that force was being applied was much smaller than the area of your feet. Therefore, the pressure created by the nail was much greater as compared to the pressure created by you. Moving on, in practical situations, the pressure created by solid objects is not considered. In fact, it is related to their weight, whereas pressure created by fluid is labeled as pressure and hence has to be measured using pressure sensing devices. There are three major kind of pressures associated with pressure measuring devices. The first one is called the absolute pressure, which is the difference between the pressure of any fluid and the absolute zero pressure or the vacuum pressure. Therefore, it is assumed that in a vacuum the pressure is zero. The next one is gauge pressure. It is not practical in every situation to have a vacuum pressure so that a reference to it can be made. However, atmospheric pressure is always around us, so we can take it as a reference and may use the pressure of any fluid with reference to this atmospheric pressure. In this case, the pressure of the fluid would be called gauge pressure because it is measuring the pressure of the fluid with reference to the atmospheric pressure. Note one thing over here that atmospheric pressure may change as you move on the earth. Therefore, gauge pressure measured near sea level would be different than the gauge pressure measured on some mountain. Let me give you an example over here to understand this thing. If you are a frequent traveler between a plain region and a mountainous region, then you must have experienced this thing that as you move from the plain area to the mountainous region, the pressure in your car tire increases automatically. That is, while traveling on mountains, the tires of your car will become more pressurized. Now, how that happened? Let's suppose that when you were on a plain region, the atmospheric pressure around you was 14 psi and you filled your car tire with a pressure of 36 psi, which is normally recommended for medium-sized cars. Over here, 36 psi pressure means an absolute pressure of 50 psi because you are measuring pressure with respect to atmospheric pressure, which is already at 14 psi. And above that 14 psi, you are pressurizing the car tires by 36 psi more. Hence, the absolute pressure in your car tire is 50 psi. Now, as you move from the plain region to the mountainous region, and suppose that the atmospheric pressure drops, let's suppose that the atmospheric pressure is now 10 psi. Now, as you haven't changed anything in your car tire, the absolute pressure will remain 50 psi, and hence the gauge pressure will now be 40 psi. Alternatively, you can get hold of this idea by thinking that the atmospheric pressure is continuously pressing down your car tires, and the air present inside the car tires is trying to maintain the shape of the car tire by pressing the tire outwards. Now, if the atmospheric pressure, which is pressing down on the car tire, reduces, then the pressure being applied by the air inside your car tire will further push the tires outwards, hence inflating the tires more. Therefore, it is recommended to lower the car tire pressure a bit before entering into the mountainous region. The same thing happens when you are blowing a balloon. What are you doing is you are injecting pressurized air into the balloon by using the power of your lungs. The balloon will only blow if the air inside the balloon has more pressure than the atmospheric pressure. I hope that you have understood that what is the difference between absolute pressure and gauge pressure. Another term sometimes used in industry is of differential pressure. Gauge pressure is in fact a special case of differential pressure. Differential pressure gives you a value of difference of pressure between two different locations or points. Just like the gauge pressure was giving you a difference of pressure between the atmospheric pressure and the pressure of fluid in any container. Differential pressures can be related to potential difference used in electrical circuits. The more potential difference is there between any 2 points of an electrical circuit, the more current will flow. Similarly, the more differential pressure between any 2 points in a hydraulic or pneumatic circuit, the more fluid will flow. The first type of pressure sensors that I am going to discuss are called diaphragms. In a very simplistic way, a diaphragm is nothing but a balloon. It has one opening through which pressure is applied, and depending on the pressure, the diaphragm expands. This expansion is measured by any displacement measuring transducer, and hence pressure is figured out. In industry, diaphragm can be made of different materials ranging from plastics, which are the cheapest and most sensitive, to the ceramics, which are the least sensitive and most expensive ones. Normally, metal alloy diaphragms are used in industrial settings because of their superior accuracy. However, if the fluid of which the pressure is to be measured is corrosive in nature, then stainless steel diaphragms are preferred. Ceramic diaphragms are only preferred in case of harsh environments where stainless steel diaphragms cannot work. Different arrangements of diaphragms can allow us to measure either absolute, gauge, or differential pressures. If the diaphragm is placed inside a vacuum and a pressurized fluid is introduced from the opening of the diaphragm, then the translation or expansion of the diaphragm would be against the vacuum pressure, and hence the displacement will correspond to the absolute pressure. However, if the diaphragm is present in open atmosphere, then the translation of the diaphragm or expansion of the diaphragm would be against the atmospheric pressure, and the pressure this translation will represent would be called gauge pressure, just like the pressure in a car tire. However, if some other pressure is applied onto the diaphragm from the outside, then the translation or expansion of the diaphragm would be against that pressure, and this translation will now represent a differential pressure. The displacement of the diaphragm is not of such value that it can be seen through naked eyes or measured through any kind of displacement sensor. Sensors that are specifically designed for measuring small displacements are used over here. Therefore, strain gauges are one of the most used sensors to measure this displacement. Let me take this opportunity to talk a bit about monolithic piezoresistive pressure sensor. This pressure sensor is made of a silicon sheet into which resistors are diffused. The major advantage of this pressure sensor is that there is no issue of bonding of strain gauge onto the diaphragm because the resistors are diffused into the diaphragm itself. If you can remember that in our discussion on strain gauges, I said that a major problem in the use of strain gauge is to attach or bond them onto the material of which you want to measure this strain in a very definitive direction. If the strain gauge is not attached in right or active direction, they will be of no use. So as the diaphragm expands, the resistors will expand with the diaphragm and there is a resistance change that can be measured easily. The only problem associated with these kind of pressure sensors is that their response is quite nonlinear. Capacitive pressure sensors employ this diaphragm where this diaphragm acts as one plate of the capacitor, and as it expands, the distance between the two metal plates of the capacitor decreases. Measuring this change in capacitance can give you the value of the pressure. As measuring pressure through diaphragm is just the case of measuring displacement of the diaphragm, so any displacement sensor can be used over here. The arrangement in which fiber optics can measure the proximity of the reflecting surface can be used over here to measure the displacement of the diaphragm. Although the use of fiber optics will make the system immune to electromagnetic distortion and will have a small size, but these kind of arrangements are costly and often have lower accuracies. A single diaphragm will have a lower sensitivity that can easily be increased by using multiple diaphragms. By the use of multiple diaphragms, I mean that they are combined to make one big elastic diaphragm that will have multiple expansion points. These things are called bellows. And once again, the displacement may be measured using any suitable displacement sensing transducer. The advantage that we can get over here is the increase in sensitivity. However, bellows cost much more as compared to a simple diaphragm. And because of multiple joints, they are prone to failure as well. Apart from diaphragms, elastic tubes are also used to measure pressure. Just like diaphragms, these tubes will expand when they are applied pressurized fluid from one end. You can think of these tubes as thin, long balloons that are used to make different figures for kids. Over here, we call these tubes Bourdon tubes. These tubes are cheaper and simpler in construction as compared to diaphragms. Moreover, they can be made from different materials ranging from rubber to plastic and from metal to stainless steel. Just like diaphragms, they have one open end from where the pressure is applied, whereas the other end is closed and normally free to move. The movement of this free end is measured to figure out the applied pressure. Once again, the task is to measure the displacement, so any displacement measuring sensor can be used over here as well. Primarily, there are three major types of Bourdon tubes. The first one got its name from the shape it has. Therefore, it is called C-type Bourdon tube. Although it is simpler in construction, but these kind of tubes can measure very high pressures with a low sensitivity. Unknown pressure is applied from this side and the free end moves as this tube expands. This movement of the free end is recorded using any suitable displacement sensor. The other types of Bourdon tubes are spiral and helical type. Both of these types are much more sensitive as compared to C-type. However, they are expensive and difficult to construct as compared to C-type. Moreover, as they are more sensitive, it means that for a small change in pressure, a large change in displacement of the free end will occur. Now, as this tube is moving physically, so there will be a limit to how much it can move, and hence these tubes have reduced pressure measuring range. Normally, when you go to a mechanic for pressurizing your car tires, spiral type Bourdon tubes are being used inside the pressure measuring device the mechanics have. The free end of the spiral Bourdon tube is attached with the pointer, and when the fixed end is attached to the car tire, the pressure inside the car tire is applied to the Bourdon tube, and depending on that pressure, the spiral Bourdon tube will expand and the free end will move, that will cause a movement of the attached pointer. The scale drawn around the pointer is calibrated to show the pressure, and hence you will know that how much pressure a car tire has. Moving forward, we arrive at one of the most easiest and most used type of pressure sensors. I'm talking about manometers. Manometers are passive instruments and they give visual indication of the pressure. In any factory floor, if you have visited one, you might have seen these kind of pressure measuring devices installed with the pipes carrying pressurized fluid. Manometers have different shapes which will enhance certain characteristics of the device. However, the most simplest one is called a U-tube manometer. The principle of manometer is quite simple. You know that if you put some water in this kind of a tube, then if you are holding this tube in open atmosphere, then at both ends atmospheric pressure will be applied and the water will be at the same level in both arms. However, if you apply a different pressure on one end than the other one, then because of this pressure difference, the arm which will have lower pressure will have more liquid in it as compared to the arm having higher pressure. You can understand this thing by considering that the pressure on one side is pushing the liquid towards the other side. So the more pressure any side will have, the more push it can apply on the liquid, and the liquid will rise in the other arm. These type of manometers are used to measure very low pressures, because if you apply a bit higher pressure, the pressurized air or whatever gas or fluid you are using to apply pressure will leak through the liquid which is present inside the manometer. Specifically talking, if you are using water in manometer and applying some pressurized air, then this pressurized air may leak through the water and you might see bubbles on the other side if the pressurized air has pressure greater than a certain value. Normally, these manometers are used to measure only pressures up to 2 bars. Mostly water is used as liquid over here, but other kind of liquids, for example, aniline, carbon tetrachloride, bromoform, mercury, or transformer oil is also sometimes used. As the liquid becomes denser, the sensing range will increase, but the sensitivity will decrease. Well type and incline type manometers can have much more sensitivity as compared to a simple U-tube manometer. You can see over here that if pressure is applied from this side and the liquid moves downwards a bit, then on the other side the liquid will rise considerably because the size of this side is quite thin as compared to the first side. The inclined type manometers will have same kind of sensitivity as that of well type but will have a larger range. Another type of pressure sensor that is employed for highly accurate pressure measurement is called resonant wire device. The wire is stretched in a chamber that contains the fluid whose pressure is to be measured. The wire resonates at its natural frequency according to the tension which is produced in the wire. This tension is dependent on the pressure of the fluid in the chamber as well. So as the pressure changes, the tension in the wire changes and hence its natural frequency changes. Measurement of this natural frequency change can be related to the pressure change in the chamber. This schematic shows the working of a thermocouple gauge. By the name, it might sound that it is a temperature measuring device, but it is not. This device uses the fact that at very low pressure, the thermal conductivity of any fluid depends on the pressure of the fluid. What happens over here is that pressurized fluid is introduced into this chamber and the heating element is turned on. Now the heat from the heating element will be conducted to the outer surface of the chamber through thermal conduction. The more thermal conduction occurs, more heat will travel from hot surface or the heater to the cold surface, and the thermocouple attached with the heater will measure a lower temperature. However, if thermal conduction is not so good, then the heater will become more heated as the heat is not being transferred to the cold surface, and the thermocouple in this case will measure an increased temperature. Therefore, the temperature measurement of thermocouple will give us an indication of the pressure of the fluid inside the chamber. Normally, this kind of pressure measuring device is used for measuring pressure in the range of few millibars only. Up till now, whatever device we have discussed is used to measure either low or medium pressure. However, for pressures greater than 7,000 bars, resistance wires are used. The principle over here is that if you apply considerable pressure on any conductor wire, then its resistance will increase. Manganese and gold chromium alloys show considerably linear and sensitive pressure resistance characteristics. Therefore, wires made out of these materials are commonly employed for measuring high pressures. The construction of these kind of device is shown over here. A kerosene-filled bellow contains these special material wires, and if high pressure is applied on these bellows, then this pressure through the kerosene oil will be transferred to the wire and the resistance of the wires will change. Normally, these kind of pressure measuring devices can measure pressures up to 30,000 bars. So these were all the pressure sensors that I have to discuss. Now, which pressure sensor you can use in what situation depends on a number of factors. First of all, the range of pressure that you want to measure dictates the type of the pressure transducer you can use. Normally, in industrial practice, any pressure between 1 to 7,000 bars is considered as mid-range pressure, and anything below 1 bar or below atmospheric pressure is considered as low pressure, and anything above 7,000 bars is considered high pressure. Moreover, manometers are only used for visual indications, so they cannot be used as part of some automatic feedback control system. If you want to use the electrical output so that it can be fed to a control system, then your options are diaphragm sensors and Bourdon tube sensors. The sensors will have electronic displacement sensors in them that will measure the amount of expansion of the diaphragm or the Bourdon tube and will generate an electrical output corresponding to the displacement of the elastic element. Moreover, resonant wire device is a popular choice if you want to have a highly accurate pressure measurements. For measuring very low pressures, that is anything below atmospheric pressure, special form of Bourdon tubes, manometers and bellows can be used. Moreover, specifically designed thermocouple gauges, Pirani gauges, McLeod gauges can also be used to measure low pressures. In this lecture, I haven't described that what a Pirani gauge or a McLeod gauge is. So it is up to you to learn about these gauges as well. This was everything I have to say about the pressure sensing transducers, and I hope now that you have a clear understanding that how most of the pressure sensing transducers work. Thank you and take care.